Joining us now to break down the forecast is Nihal Krishan, a political reporter at the Washington Examiner. Nihal, acknowledging where we're looking at right now, we do see some new economic numbers coming out this morning, but there are also a lot of political things coming into the conversation right now, not only when it comes to coronavirus, but also the economy. Are you pessimistic or optimistic, acknowledging where we are right now?
Thanks so much for having me, Alex. I am cautiously optimistic about where we're headed right now. I still think, as like many of my sources have told me, and as my reporting has shown, that we're going to continue to have a W-shaped recovery, where we have spikes, but then there's also drops as the virus increases. If you look at states like Texas or Arizona, their economies probably will have contractions in the coming weeks because of fears related to the virus. Even if there is no lockdown in place, people will still spend less money, go less to establishments. And so, I mean, it's inevitable that there is going to be a drop in activity and economic growth. So I think that the W recovery is how Americans should be expecting the economy to kind of sputter along, at least until a vaccination comes about.
I think you're right, because even some states aren't on the same necessarily timeline. I mean, some, for example, opened up earlier and now they're pulling back a little bit. Some didn't close down at all, and now they're starting to rethink their decisions. All across the country, we're seeing different states handle this very differently. So it's not necessarily that the entire country is on the same page when it comes to opening or closing once again. So I think that is something that we should see moving forward. But when it comes to the government's response too, we did see the relief packages early on in the early stages of the pandemic. We did see those $1,200 checks go out. Theoretically, though, is there anything else that the government could be doing, whether it's another round of relief packages or maybe even tax cuts, to really spur this economy going once again?
Absolutely. So this is just, hot off the press. I just interviewed two economists from the University of Chicago. There was also a bipartisan group of Democrats and Republicans who put together a plan just a few weeks ago, which all point towards continuing government relief programs, whether it's the stimulus, the $1,200 stimulus checks or some sort of stimulus checks like that, expanding unemployment insurance and allowing it to go on past the end of July, giving more money to the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses to stay alive. So that, it's basically a continuation of what we have past the end of July, when those are all set to expire, so that companies and businesses or individuals are allowed to continue to have support beyond the current deadline, which doesn't seem like the virus is obviously going to be killed by the end of July. And so these are all ways in which the government can play a role. Another big way that economists have suggested is what we call automatic triggers. So if economic growth goes beneath a certain point or unemployment dips beneath a certain point, automatically certain programs are put into place, so we don't have to wait for Congress to pass it before people can get that benefit. So there's plenty that the government can do. Tax cuts is also one way, but that only a payroll tax would help a majority of Americans. Otherwise, most tax cuts would really only benefit those right at the top.
Yeah, and that is one thing, too, that is a little bit, people are keeping a close eye on it, because it's one thing to get businesses up and running once again, but we also have to look out for the individuals who are being asked to stay home as well. I mean, the $1,200 stimulus check, don't get me wrong, it was great, but that didn't go very far for a lot of Americans. It's the unemployment benefits that are really getting them by right now, and a lot of people are hoping that they can keep those individuals on the payrolls in order to kind of kickstart it once again, so once things do start going, that the economy kind of starts riding once again. But when we talk about states reopening and the economy once again coming back to normal, right now the president is at a little bit of a lower approval rating than we've seen in the past. Do you suspect that as the economy starts getting back into motion once again, once people start getting back to work, that his approval rating will almost match that? Or do you not think that the two are as related as they might seem?
So I think what's most critical for President Trump is his ability to control and squash the virus. And if he's able to kill that ugly head that has reared around our country for the past 4 months, then that is what will allow the economy to grow and flourish like nothing else, and will show a sense of competency and trust within him. And so first comes the virus, and then second comes signs of economic growth and what people make of that. And so I think that's what people are really looking at when they're considering how much they like him.
And I think that's an interesting point, too, because even if the economy does take off right now, as we start seeing a little bit, if there was a dip in cases, I should say, there still is that threat that come November or maybe the months prior, there will be that second wave and things will close once again, and he won't be seeing the same economic numbers that he's hoping to be seeing as the summer progresses. So I think that is an interesting point. I think the virus, addressing that comes first, and the economy will naturally follow with it. And for the president, I'm sure he's hoping that his approval ratings do, too. But Nihal Krishan, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on tonight.